Just a few days removed from Tadej Pogačar's 4th yellow jersey win at the 2025 Tour de France, and with questions around his schedule for the rest of the season, today UAE have now announced their Vuelta squad, and Pogačar is not in it. But as well as rest, this could be one of the smartest moves of his entire career, because whilst his main rivals are gearing up for one more Grand Tour, Tadej has made a decision that might secure his next big win, protect his legacy, save his 2026 season, and prove just how dangerous he still is. So we're going to jump into this one and break it down and talk you through why this could be one of the smartest moves of Tadej Pogačar's entire career. So first and foremost, let's have a look at the team announcement from UAE and who is going to the Vuelta, along with what Pogačar's schedule is going to be instead. And after his interviews towards the end of the Tour de France saying that he was ready to go home, exhausted, and this was probably the toughest Tour de France ever, that Tadej will not be there for the Vuelta. Instead, we can see that the team are sending Joao, Almeida, who crashed out of the Tour de France, alongside Juan Ayuso, who's recovered from his brutal bee sting. And those two will be sharing team leadership. And for those of you that have been paying attention at last year's Tour de France and this year as well, that's likely to lead to some fireworks in the inter-team dynamics and could give us watching at home some drama. And they'll be going up against such heavyweights as Jonas Vingegaard and quite possibly Remco Evenepoel as well. Even without Pog, this has the potential to be super exciting as a spectacle for us fans. But the most important news here, obviously, is that Pog isn't going to be there. But instead, we do have confirmation that he will be riding the World Championships in Montreal instead. And he had this to say: "After such a demanding tour, we decided it was best to take a break. The Vuelta is of course a race I would dearly love to return to. I have fantastic memories there from 2019, but now the body is telling me to rest. I'm excited to go back to Canada. The races are tough but beautiful, and they fit my style well. I'll be aiming to be back racing well for that part of the season and for the World Championships especially." So that's huge news, and Pog was expected to do the World Championships probably either way. The question mark was probably around the Vuelta, and he had earlier said that he was potentially considering the Vuelta. But same as last year, once he's finished the tour, he's made the decision to skip the Vuelta and instead concentrate on the Worlds. And honestly, that might be the perfect call. So let's talk about why this actually makes perfect sense. Firstly, Tadej has just come off one of, if not the most dominant Tour de France performances in history, and he did it whilst he was sick, which he confirmed to us after stage 11. And as we could all see towards the end of the third week, he certainly wasn't feeling his usual self in press conferences and arguably in his performances on the road. He openly said things like, "I'm obviously exhausted, I'm ready to go home." So he's clearly feeling the effects of a brutal Dauphiné and Tour de France combo. That being said, last year he did do the Giro Tour double and then the Worlds. So there were question marks about if he'd do 2 Grand Tours this year, followed by the Worlds. But I think the important thing to consider this year that wasn't potentially so prevalent last year was his savage Spring Classics campaign that saw him pick up a number of classics and one-day races again, but saw him debut in things like Paris-Roubaix, which are obviously extremely taxing on the body. So if you then put that alongside historic power numbers at the Tour de France, it is no surprise that he's physically and possibly mentally cooked at this point. So you can't blame him for wanting to skip the Vuelta, even though it is missing from his almost complete Palmares at this point. And he himself also said things like athletes are susceptible to burnout, including him. So it's potentially something that's already on his mind. Some riders are never the same after going too deep. That kind of overreaching can end a career peak window early. And as Pogačar and his team managers have also said, his career longevity at this point depends on his mental state rather than his physical state. Because as we all know, being at that level of performance where you are the best in the world must require an insane amount of focus, concentration, training, and mental toughness. As former world champion boxer Marvin Hagler once said, "It's tough to get out of bed to train at 5 a.m. when you sleep in silk sheets." And when you're Pogačar and you've arguably already got the greatest Palmares in history, that balance must be really difficult to maintain and a really fine margin. But Tadej isn't just skipping this one to rest for now. He's thinking long term. As we mentioned, he's targeting the World Championships in Montreal, a course that really suits him once again, gives him the opportunity to be a two-time reigning world champion, which, to be honest, it might be a bit controversial, but to me, I think that's a better palmarès than winning the Vuelta once, especially when it's a course that suits him as well as it does. But also, he's mentioned that he's targeting the 2028 Olympics. As we remember, he got bronze at the road race a couple of years ago. They don't come around very often, and this is probably realistically his last shot at getting an Olympic gold. And as he said also in the same interview as the Olympics comment, Tadej said, "I don't see myself going on for much longer," and then kind of mentioned the 2028 Olympics as possibly the beginning of the end. So it sounds like the big picture here is career longevity and those long-term goals that he's got in mind. It's a pretty good deal if you think about it. Skip one Grand Tour, gain recovery, focus, a shot at an even more prestigious jersey, and set him up nicely for the 2026 season to do pretty much whatever he wants. And the scary part is, Pogačar didn't just win the Tour this year, he crushed his rivals despite illness and fatigue. Now imagine what he'll do when he's fully recovered, laser focused, and chasing a rainbow jersey at full form, possibly against his main rival, Jonas Vingegaard. And Pog has always been a clever racer, but this might be his smartest move yet. Skipping a Tour isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of maturity and control, which is what we've seen from him this season at the Tour compared to previous years. So instead of burning out like so many greats before him, he's building sustainability and power into his season. So whilst his fans might be disappointed not to see him at the Vuelta, they might end up thanking him, because this decision could be key into extending his dominance into the Worlds, next year's Tour and beyond. And if he shows up at the Worlds at 100% fitness, everyone else will be terrified. So let me know below what you think. Was this a smart decision to skip the Vuelta, or is it a missed opportunity to add to his palmarès whilst he's in his peak window? I think more than anything, this has just made me realise and appreciate even more how brilliant Pog's performance was at this year's Tour de France to win the yellow jersey. Even whilst he was ill, even whilst he was exhausted, even whilst it was one of the hardest races ever, he still made it look easy. So I can't wait to see what he brings us at the Worlds. And I'm also super excited for the Vuelta. Let me know in the comments who you think might win that one. With Ayuso and Almeida, there's sure to be some drama involved at UAE. Either of those guys could win it, but you'd have to say that second place at the Tour, Jonas Vingegaard, would be the favourite to win it, take his first Vuelta and add that to his palmarès. And of course, if previous Vuelta champion Remco Evenepoel is recovered, feeling better after the Tour, he's a strong contender as well. So we won't have to wait long for our post-Tour de France Grand Tour fix before the World Championships in Montreal. So there's still more to come in 2025. Make sure you like, comment, most importantly subscribe. It's free and it really helps the channel. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.